Hello, good morning. We are very happy to welcome you again after the COVID-19 pandemic to this 18th Mediterranean Logistic and Transport Forum in the frame of Meda Logistics 2022. We would like to thank all the speakers with us today, the attendees, both online and on-site, for joining us today, as well as the SIL and EPSOMED project for making it possible. My name is Diana Trujol, and I will be your moderator this morning. In the coming panel of experts, we will exchange views and knowledge on how to enhance the Mediterranean region as a heavy hub for trade and logistics on a global scale. Our motto this year is logistics more important than ever because ASCAME advocates for the sector of logistics and transport as a key driver for wealth and prosperity for our region. In our first session, from global to regional, transforming the Mediterranean logistic value chain, we will discuss how COVID-19 highlighted the necessity for individuals, governments, and companies to not depend on global outsourcing models driven by low-cost value in locations that are too far away. In this context, regionalization emerged as an immense source of opportunities, especially when risk can be reduced, profitability and speed can be increased, and also the possibility to reduce our carbon footprint. In this first panel, I have the honor to introduce our speakers, Antoine Aprioal, Emmanuel Notari, and Mustafa Al-Hayat. The first to intervene will be Antoine. He coordinates and manages the Sustainable Development and Regionalization Department at the International European Institute for the Mediterranean. He has an impressive CV with an intensive experience in promoting the regionalization of the Mediterranean region at many different levels. And he is an active actor of many think tanks and other strategic initiatives. Today, he will talk about the factors to be considered to boost regional value chain and will give us some examples of this new trend. Welcome, Antoine. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Diana. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you, ASCAME, that we are partners with IMED and ASCAME, and we'll meet very soon for the Meda Week. Today, I will base my remarks on the works that we carried out with CETMO, the Center for Studies of Western Mediterranean Transport, based here in Barcelona, mostly in the Western Mediterranean. What we have done is publication and also conferences on the occasion of the 10th Ministerial Conference of Transport of the Dialogue 5+5 last October. So some of the panelists have participated in this publication. Also, ASCAME, Mr. Zibawi, wrote an article. So I'm inviting you to check this publication on our website. So today, the unprecedented disruption which COVID-19 has caused on the transport sector, especially the maritime transport, has led to, I will say some figures. First, historically high shipping freight rates. At the moment, we can talk about 70% of the cost of shipping a container from China to the Mediterranean has increased. We can talk also about unpredictable schedules, more than 16 weeks to send a container from Asia to Europe. And we can also talk about port congestion. In April alone, 20% of all container vessels worldwide were waiting outside ports. And consequently, we have fragile supply chains. So this situation that is lasting for now 2 years and more has led us to consider how to avoid relying this over-reliance of Europe and the Mediterranean over Southeast Asia supply chains, especially regarding strategical products such as high-tech inputs or pharmaceutics. And the solution that has been put forward and that has been discussed over the last years is nearshoring for Europe, nearshoring in its eastern and southern neighborhood. And this for three reasons. The first reason is resilience, because nearshoring in the southern neighborhood would reduce risk by shortening and diversifying supply chains. It also means more sustainability, because production that is closer to European markets and also African markets means less emissions. And it's particularly important to achieve climate goals. And C, we cannot consider really relocation to Europe because of the labor cost, for example, but in the south neighborhood, the labor cost is very attractive, and geographical proximity means lower operational costs and delays to ship containers from across the Mediterranean. And these are the advantages of short sea shipping. So now, the factors to be considered to boost regional value chains. As for this trend to become a reality, it is necessary to consider the attractiveness and competitiveness of the southern and eastern Mediterranean countries. What are these comparative advantages? The first comparative advantage is a lower labor cost compared to South Asia, and also a higher productivity rate compared also to Southeast Asia. And one of the most important also comparative advantage is that in the Mediterranean, we have free trade agreements, especially these free trade agreements have achieved dismantlement of all tariff on industrial goods between Europe and Morocco and Tunisia. However, there is a number of important challenges to consider to make the Meda region that is competitive and provide incentives for productive investments and nearshoring in the current context. And the first of these factors is transport infrastructures. We know that transport infrastructures are key enablers of economic integration and development, as they facilitate the movement of goods, services, persons across the borders, and they strengthen ties between domestic, regional, and global markets. Despite recent investments in the infrastructures, the quality of transport infrastructures in the region is not satisfactory, and it is definitely falling short of the growing connectivity needs between the countries of the region, especially if we want to regionalize global value chains. So overall, the transport infrastructure in the CMED are characterized by a lack of multimodality and an over-reliance on road, and this is not competitive and sustainable in the current context. The use of railway transport is very limited, and there is not enough south-south connectivity. There are missing links, for example, in the road and rail transport systems that are impeding the development of trade corridors, especially between Maghreb countries. We can also talk about a fragmented port system, impeding the development of intra-regional maritime trade. For example, there are very few direct links between MENA countries, especially between Maghreb countries, to the point that intra-regional goods are transported sometimes through third country ports such as Almeria or Marseille. Just a figure that was mentioned by the UFM in the previous conference is that only 5% of the cargo trade in the Mediterranean is between MENA countries, while 15% of this trade is between Europe and the south of the Mediterranean, and 70% of cargo trade in the Mediterranean is made north-north. So there's a necessity to upgrade infrastructure port infrastructures, especially in the face of the rise of mega container ships. It is important because it will provide advantages to these ports that make the necessary investments to be able to take this mega ship in. And when we are talking about investment needs, we can think, for example, about the port of Rades in Tunisia, which concentrates 80% of the container traffic in Tunisia, so it is very important. It is really the link between Tunisia and the regional and global markets. And the fact that its performance indicators are in constant decline for a decade now are especially worrying. And this is calling for important investment to safeguard Tunisia's regional and global competitiveness. So we need to invest, but there's a really a huge gap in financing the infrastructures in the MENA region. We are talking about needs about 100 billion US dollars per year. There's especially a lack of investment in the cross-border road and rail projects. One solution would be to mobilize more the private sector, especially through public-private partnerships, especially given the budget constraint that the countries of the region they are experiencing after the COVID. So to give an example of this public-private partnerships, we can talk about the 6 October dry port in Egypt. This is the first PPP project in the transport sector in Egypt. So this is a dry port that will be close to Cairo and that will be connected through rail to the port of Alexandria. And this will be a solution to relieve the port of Alexandria from congestion, and that will promote multimodality and sustainability through railways. It is a solution that is also in the papers in Jordan. They are planning also to build this kind of dry ports. So we need investments, we need private sector investments, but the problem is that there are restrictions, for example, on FDIs in these countries. They are relatively high in the CMED countries, especially in Algeria and Jordan, and in Egypt when it comes to maritime transport. So there is need for a reform of business environments. It is key to ensure the regionalization of global value chains, especially regarding the non-tariff barriers, market opacity, and regulatory changes. So now we have to see that improvement in transport infrastructures, according to the UFM, could result in 3.6% additional growth in regional trade. So there are also positive initiatives in the regions to invest in transport, to invest in transport infrastructures. And we can take as an example the Plan Rail Maroc that is aiming at developing the railway in Morocco by 2040, or the National Port Strategy of Morocco. Algeria is also an example because they want to become a Mediterranean hub for large vessels. And we can think of the port of El Hamdania in Cherchell, that will be the second largest deep water port in Africa. It is funded by China and Algeria, and it will be strengthening the Med Central Corridor, commercial corridor, and will benefit the trade connections between Turkey, Italy, Malta, Tunisia, Algeria, and finally to the sub-Saharan Africa through the sub-Saharan road that goes from Alger to Lagos in Nigeria. So there's really potential. Another point to examine is the logistics sector, its competitiveness, to ensure that there are low trade costs and no delays. It is important for the efficiency of the supply chain. And if we look at the World Bank Logistic Performance Index, all the CMED countries, excepting Egypt, are performing under the middle-income country average. Maghreb countries are especially lagging behind compared to East Med countries. And what is more worrying is that, excepting Egypt and Algeria, the logistic performance index in Tunisia, Lebanon, and Morocco are declining. So this situation is reflecting a low quality and fragmented services that are not meeting international standards. But I'm convinced that with the new UFM action plan, that we will have contribution to upgrade the logistic performance in the region. And here, digitalization is also a key word to improve the logistic services that will allow to both save time and money. It will be essential to elevate administrative burdens and reduce hurdles to increase the delivery of goods. However, there are some implementation obstacles. Digitalization is often costly, and it is very demanding regarding the skills and the capacity required to ensure its implementation. During one of our conferences, a speaker from Morocco mentioned that North African SMEs providing transport and logistics services are showing a low degree of maturity as regards their data analysis capacity. He said that only 10% of them consider themselves as advanced in this respect. Also, we can mention a lack of harmonization between the level of digitization of the different actors of the supply chain, making the process a bit incomplete and difficultly interoperable. So I would conclude with some recommendations. The first of all is that we definitely need a better coordination between countries of the region to increase the connectivity. I'm thinking of cross-border projects, especially in the Maghreb. And we need cooperation on common standards regarding quality, compatibility, and interoperability. And finally, as I mentioned, we need more investments in transport and logistics, especially in multimodal transport and multimodal transport links to reorient freight from roads to rail, and it is very important in view of the Paris Agreement. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your intervention. It was really interesting. You mentioned the necessity to create roads and to create train rails that cross all the region from Morocco to Egypt to be able to transport all the cargo and the materials. And this is definitely something that here we in Ascame and like many other organizations, we are fighting to and advocating to build these kind of roads that if they don't exist, it will still be needed to triangulate to a third country to send these materials. So this is really, really important. You mentioned also the role of technology. Also very, very important. You can see a difference sometimes between Asia and the Mediterranean region in terms of development of technology and how it is important for the Mediterranean region, especially North Africa, to kind of level up a little bit the standards, the technology to meet what is needed from the European Union countries. You also mentioned about the bilateral agreements that are being made between the European Union and third countries in the Maghreb. But I would like to ask you, what is because now we are turning to sub-Saharan Africa, and it's the youngest continent in the world, and it's really close to us. And of course, it's opened up a lot of opportunities. So in your opinion, what will be the impact for the Euro-Mediterranean trade relationships of the African continental free trade area?
So the impact is clear. There are lots of opportunities because it's a market of 1.2 billion inhabitants, and it will allow improve access to sub-Saharan Africa, especially Maghreb countries. I'm thinking of Morocco that is increasingly looking south, especially I was talking about the railway network improvements. Though they are looking south to go to Senegal and to. So all these infrastructures, they will benefit from the supply chain will benefit from this infrastructure and also from the dismantling of tariff barriers. At the moment, only 3.9% of North African exports go to sub-Saharan Africa. So there is a lot of margin to improve and a lot of opportunities. But I will mention Mubarak Law, who was an advisor in Senegal of the government, and he intervened in the conference with Ascame last year in the Meda week. He was saying that here again, to fully size the potential of this free trade agreement, they will require drastic improvements of infrastructures. Because there's a lack of railway and maritime connectivity. We are talking mostly about road connectivity, and road often not meeting international standards. So this is an obstacle. And what he said also, there are the bottlenecks to facilitate trade because there's a weak cooperation between economic actors in sub-Saharan Africa. They don't know each other, he said, and he was asking for more economic forum in Africa, so they meet each other, they exchange, and they can create bonds, and it will be a benefit for regional trade. So this would be my response.
Yes, it's the numbers are impressive to see like how much margin we have with sub-Saharan Africa, as you were mentioning, both for Europe and for the whole African continent. We sometimes have the feeling that Asia and other countries are like kind of taking advantage, although they are really far away. So I hope like we all come back home taking this idea in our minds to open up to Africa and to really it's like the egg and the chicken. So if there are not investment, we cannot build the infrastructure, but if there is no infrastructure, we cannot attract investment. So we need to start somewhere. So thank you very much, Antoine. Connecting with the investments, I will present our next speaker, Emmanuel Notari. He was having some technical problems, so I don't know if he managed to connect.
I'm there.
Yes? Okay. Hello. Good morning, Emmanuel. So Emmanuel Notari is here we have Mustafa Al-Hayat, which will be our next speaker. Here we have Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a long friend of Ascame. Let's say. He is the general manager of a very important investment network in the Mediterranean. His network is seen as one of the most important platforms connecting investment actors in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East and Asia. And he's, as I was mentioning, connecting a little bit all the dots to try to help and to push these investments that we were talking that are really necessary towards the North Africa and the African continent. So it's a pleasure to welcome you, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. No, talking about this topic of this regionalization of the economy. Yes, I would like to reinforce this positioning, this analysis of the situation. For us, there are three bold tendencies that permits to envisage this sort of recomposition of the value chains and the densification around the Mediterranean of the re-regionalization or relocalization of the economies. Obviously, there are challenges and there are investments that are necessary, as it was pointed by Antoine. But I think there is a momentum that we should jump on in the Mediterranean to probably have an acceleration of the relocalization of these economic exchanges. First, we have the new industrial revolutions, the digitalization, the automation in the industry makes it possible to produce closer from home and at a reasonable cost. So we can gain in competitiveness by producing closer. So this means that probably we can imagine that some activities could, if not relocating in the Mediterranean region, at least there will be a diversification of production and new investment could take place in the Mediterranean. The second situation is the imperative for the climate, fighting against the climate change. I don't need to elaborate much on this topic, but we all understand that there is a necessity to minimize our impact on the environment, and producing at the other side of the world is not something that is reasonable in a context of fighting climate change. So again, relocalization of production, shortening of value chains is a probable scenario, and the industrials are invited, eventually incentivized to produce closer from the consumer market. A third tendency is a sort of deglobalization trend that we see, and especially after the crisis and during the crisis we have seen and we are still seeing, we have some companies that are endangered. And when companies are endangered, you have predators that are threatening them. And there are threatening of buyouts from foreign companies, from our domestic companies, for some of our domestic companies. And in this context, you will see much more countries that are protecting themselves from investment, and we call that they screen investments. It means they screen, so they conduct due diligence when they see foreign operators, foreign investors coming in their country. And there is much more of screening of investment at the moment. And so this participates in a sort of a deglobalization trend, which participates also to this regionalization of value chain, because there will be less offshore, or it's more difficult, at least, for Chinese Americans to invest in some countries in our region. So all this makes that there is a tendency of nearshoring, relocalization of value chains. So obviously, this will not happen in one day. We cannot see it so far. If you look at the investment figures, we'll see that this will probably take place in some years of time, but companies are not moving back from Asia for sure. Reinvestment is still low, and if we look at the investment trends in the world, we'll see that foreign investment is coming back, but in developed countries only. On the African continent and in North Africa and Middle East, we don't see this trend yet happening. FDI is coming back, and even faster than what was expected after the crisis, but so far the Mediterranean is not yet benefiting from the south of the Mediterranean is not yet benefiting from this situation. But if we want to analyze the pros and the facilitation factors and the constraint factors that will happen, that are the equation of this regionalization of value chain, I'd like to refer here to a work done by Professor Shahir Zaki from the University of Cairo, where he presented this during a seminar we organized at Anima. For me, there are three categories of domain where, because if we want to talk about regionalization of value chain, we have to compare South Mediterranean with Southeast Asia and see where are our advantages and where are our weaknesses. So there are domains where we are better performing than Southeast Asia. If we look at the cost of human resources, we are better positioned. Some countries, for example, like Tunisia, are very well positioned in terms of human resources cost. If we look at productivity, we are much better in the south of the Mediterranean than in Asian countries, in Southeast Asia, Bangladesh, are beyond, below, the South Mediterranean countries in terms of productivity. Another strong advantage we have in the south of the Mediterranean is we have association agreements, trade agreements all around the region between Mediterranean countries and with the EU, which is a strong market, which is not the case of Southeast Asia. So these are big advantages for the south of the Mediterranean. Obviously, there is one of, if you look at the Chinese economy, the fact that in some sectors you have dumping, I would say, this limits the impact of this productivity and cost of human resources impact. But still, there are strong advantages for the south of the Mediterranean. The point where the Mediterranean, South Mediterranean country is comparable to Southeast Asia is if you look at for example, international ranking. If we look at international ranking, all these countries, except Bangladesh, which is better than the country. But if you look at South Mediterranean and Southeast Asia, they are all around the 17th place in the doing business. They are all similar, nearly close in the global competitiveness index. So they are comparable countries. So there is not gap. We could not say there is a gap of the South Mediterranean country if we look at this international ranking. And international ranking are important in location decision of a foreign investor. If we look also at the opening to foreign capitals, I would say that South Mediterranean countries and Southeast Asia are very comparable, which means that they are not very good. They are not very open for the circularization of capital. So there is no Asian advantage compared to South Mediterranean countries. There is some points, however, where the South Mediterranean countries is weaker than the Southeast Asia, and we have to work on this. The first point is non-tariff barriers. We need absolutely that South Mediterranean countries work on the facilitation of the cost of the not the cost, but the bureaucracy which is associated to import and exports. If we want that SMEs participate in the value chain, if we want that small companies participate in the international business, importing and exporting needs to be easier in terms of administration. Safer in terms of administration and procedure. And South Mediterranean countries need to work really on this aspect in order to participate in this global value chains and in the relocation of these value chains. And finally, there is another weakness point that is very important to tackle if we compare South Mediterranean country with Southeast Asia is technology. This is a big failure, I would say, if we compare the two regions. Even the Tunisia, who was the higher technology development index in the south of the Mediterranean, this index is 5 to 6 times below the one of China or Vietnam. So there is really a need to really upmarket, climb in the technology, in the industry of the south of the Mediterranean, if we want to capture the benefit of this possible relocation and re-regionalization of the value chains in the Mediterranean. So I will finish on this for now.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting intervention. I would like to ask you, what do you see the future for the region? Like, do you think, or what, if you have to make a prediction, what are the things that we are missing in our region to attract more investment or to make the capital to flow, let's say, with more facility? I know you mentioned this bureaucracy, technology, but do you think this will change in how much time? Do you think like the big population we have of young people will push this, or it has to come more from governments, more like a kind of top-bottom approach or bottom-up approach? What do you think? If you have to give us your opinion about this.
Um, well, there are probably plenty of things to do. I would say one thing we could do together, Mediterranean countries, is to work on a fine sectoral strategies. I mean, we need to orient strategic sector strategies in the region in order to decide on which are the opportunities for this region. See where is the international demand, and where is the international demand we can serve in the Mediterranean, and really develop bold, important strategies on these sectors in order to cap the benefits of this value chains and of this and really serve this demand. So there is sector strategies to develop. Secondly, in terms of development of technologies, this is key. And for me, there are three aspects. We need the industry of the Southern Mediterranean to go up market and to go to climb in technology. There are three levels where we can act. Government can act by incentivizing industries to invest in research and development in technology. We have examples of measures like a research tax credit, or we could say a research budget support. There are different aspects, but this kind of laws, they are really game changers in some countries. At the moment, we are collaborating with American authorities to try to implement a research tax credit in Morocco, in partnership with the private sector, business associations, etc. This has been a game changer in France. I think it's also happening in Malta. This could be really a game changer. So this kind of measures are very important to incentive SMEs to invest in R&D. Then you have the valorization of research, help and accompany researchers to go out of the lab and to valorize their research toward the industry. Again, it's a question of incentivizing, recognition, also accompaniment, which could be delivered to researcher. I mean, probably to young researcher, because usually the older researcher, they are not interesting anymore. But the young researcher, they are interesting they are open to the entrepreneurial experience, and they could be interesting in valorizing their research toward the industry, either by creating company or licensing their research to industries. Okay. And finally, there is another measure that could help in the development of technology, is permit the acquisition of foreign patents. In some countries in the south of the Mediterranean, for example, it's not allowed or it's difficult to buy foreign patents. And this should be levered because this will really help also companies to acquire and to climb in technology. So government should help in acquiring foreign patents by enterprise.
Okay, thank you very much, Emmanuel. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so
here
much.
With us today. Now we have our last speaker. It's Mustafa Al Hayat. He is the president. Hello, Mustafa. He is the president of the Moroccan Logistic Association, vice president of the African Federation of Logisticians, and advisor of the Arab Federal Chamber of Shipping, among many other positions. He has a very extensive CV and experience. He is also a professor, a very prominent professor on the topic of logistics, regionalization, and he will be giving giving us some knowledge, sharing with us some knowledge about this trend and how to regionalize. I believe he will be making the presentation in French. So the floor is yours. Marhaba, Mustafa, welcome.
Bonjour,
Bonjour.
vous m'entendez?
Yes, we do.
Sorry, I prefer to make my intervention in French, even if I have some mastery of English. As you know, my wife is English citizen, but I prefer to speak French.
Of course.
J'ai une intervention un peu qui va remonter un peu avant le Covid, avant la crise de 2011, pour dire ce qu'on a fait dans le cadre de 7 mots, parce que j'étais un des experts de 7 mots de 2002 à 2004, et on a fait un travail sur ce qu'on appelle RegMed, qui nous a permis d'identifier tous les problèmes qui se posent dans la Méditerranée, qui était à l'époque une Méditerranée de paix. Et on a commencé à faire des utopies. Je suis parmi les utopistes qui croient toujours à l'utopie. Et on a dit il faut faire une Méditerranée pour nous de paix et de croissance. Et on a fait ce qu'on appelle des réformes au niveau réglementaire, au niveau institutionnel. On a envisagé l'idée des autoroutes de la mer, de développement multimodal, de faire le guichet automatique pour renforcer la transparence et la fluidité, etc. Et puis après, le monde évolue. En 2011, il y avait des bouleversements politiques qui ont touché toute la rive sud de la Méditerranée, à l'exception du Maroc. Et ça a entraîné une crise en Tunisie, en Égypte, en Libye, en Syrie, au Liban, etc. Donc la Méditerranée qu'on avait construite, et grâce à l'aide et à l'imagination de 7 mots, même si c'était que l'Afrique occidentale, mais ça a touché même l'Afrique, la Méditerranée occidentale, mais aussi la Méditerranée orientale. Et on a commencé à vivre ce qu'on appelle des turbulences sur le plan de toutes les chaînes logistiques. J'insiste. Parallèlement à cette situation, c'est une situation qui a bouleversé ce qu'on appelle toutes les données de fluidité entre les pays de la rive nord et de la rive sud de la Méditerranée et du passage par la Méditerranée. Vous vous rappelez, je l'ai dit plusieurs fois, la Méditerranée est un lieu de transit qui échappe à tout ce contrôle, et en particulier entre ce qui se passe en Asie et quelquefois en Europe du Nord et même vers les États-Unis. Et donc on se trouvait, nous, les euro-méditerranéens, devant une situation. Qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Alors, en ne sortant pas de la crise politique, il y a le Covid-19 qui est arrivé et qui a imposé pendant 2 ans une autre manière de voir le problème de l'acheminement des marchandises, et en particulier la nécessité d'une résilience et d'une flexibilité, d'une agilité. Heureusement, dans le domaine maritime, et là je félicite tous les armateurs et surtout les marins qui nous ont permis d'avoir toujours une fluidité malgré la crise de Covid. Alors, on a dit, si on est en train de sortir de la Covid, et puis après on rentre dans une guerre, la guerre de l'Ukraine, qui a bouleversé tout l'approvisionnement des pays de la rive sud de la Méditerranée, surtout en céréales. Et donc, on a commencé à dire, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Est-ce que la mondialisation, et là je reviens sur, il n'y aura pas, je m'excuse, il n'y aura pas de fin à la mondialisation. Par contre, se poursuivra effectivement, mais surtout de revenir à la régionalisation et de dire, nous sommes des Méditerranéens, l'Europe et l'Afrique, je parle l'Afrique, je ne parle pas des pays du Maghreb, parce que l'Afrique est un continent très important. Et il y a une théorie, un modèle auquel je crois, de nos amis de l'Institut de développement de la Méditerranée en France, ce qu'on appelle l'intégration verticale. Afrique, Méditerranée, Europe. Et ça, tout ça, ça nécessite, parce que j'ai participé avec eux sur une étude sur la logistique entre les pays pour aller vers, de considérer le Maroc comme un hub. Le Maroc, dans sa globalité, grâce au port de Tanger Med, qui, vous le savez, récemment, la Banque mondiale, il l'a classé le 6e au niveau de la compétitivité à l'échelle mondiale. Moi, je suis en train de voir avec vous quel est le scénario, parce que là, c'est surtout de vivre, de tirer conclusion de toutes ces contraintes, de tous ces bouleversements, et de dire comment on peut faire pour demain. Et c'est ça, demain, c'est aujourd'hui. Alors, je me dis, peut-être, et espérons-le, il y a deux pôles dans la Méditerranée Sud qui sont relativement stables, à savoir le Maroc et l'Égypte, et qui connaissent des croissances économiques très importantes avec des infrastructures très importantes, etc. J'ai dit, tous ces deux pôles peuvent devenir des hubs entre l'Europe et l'Afrique. Parce que l'Égypte est en train, et que vous le savez, est en train de faire des trains rapides pour aller vers même le sud de l'Égypte, des ports très importants, une infrastructure de plateformes multimodales, etc. Parce que je connais un peu ce qui se passe. Le Maroc aussi, avec Tanger Med, et demain le port de West Nador, qui va s'ouvrir et qui va y avoir un grand hub méditerranéen, mais où il y a des opérateurs multinationaux qui s'intéressent à leurs activités, mais nous, les Méditerranéens, on doit orienter une partie de notre activité et de nos intentions vers comment aller vers l'Afrique par ces deux pôles. Et j'ai dit, il y a un espoir. Demain que la paix en Libye, en Tunisie et en une stabilité, il y aura un autre hub en Algérie, en Tunisie, pour aller vers le centre de l'Afrique. Et donc, comme ça, on aura 3 intégrations de ce qu'on appelle AME, Afrique, Méditerranée, Europe, du côté à l'ouest, au centre et à l'est, et avec une infrastructure. Vous prenez le cas du Maroc, les autoroutes de la mer, parce que si on veut faire une régionalisation, qu'on revient à tout ce qu'il a fait, cette mot et d'autres, la Commission européenne et le BEI, sur de créer des autoroutes de la mer, de faire des plateformes multimodales euro-méditerranéennes, etc. Ce n'est plus un discours, c'est une réalité. Il faut qu'on revienne sur ces questions et qu'on demande de les prendre en considération par rapport aux nouvelles donnes. N'oubliez pas, si on ne fait pas cette intégration entre l'Europe et l'Afrique, d'autres vont le faire à notre place, mais ce n'est plus l'Afrique pour l'Europe, mais l'Afrique pour autre chose. Et je reviens, c'est quelque chose de stratégique. Il y a l'avantage pour le cas du Maroc. On peut venir par la voie routière, mais aussi par la voie maritime pour aller vers l'Afrique subsaharienne et de constituer ce qu'on appelle des fluidités nord-sud. Pas parce que si vous allez constater le trafic de Tanger Med, c'est une grande partie, c'est est-ouest, ouest-est, mais nord-sud, c'est une partie très faible par rapport à l'activité. Et donc, c'est dans ce cadre que je reviens à ce que l'a dit mon collègue de cette mot et l'autre intervenant, c'est que la Méditerranée, elle a des potentialités. Et je peux vous dire, au Maroc, je suis professeur. Lorsque j'ai commencé à enseigner la logistique, il n'y avait rien. Maintenant, il y a des éminents chercheurs de haut niveau. En plus, ils maîtrisent l'anglais mieux que leurs professeurs dans le domaine de la logistique et de ce qu'on appelle les systèmes d'information logistique, etc. Et sont allés plus loin vers l'intelligence artificielle. Et donc, tous ces éléments, il faut qu'on les prenne en considération pour réduire le coût de la logistique, surtout dans notre Méditerranée. Avant de terminer, lorsque j'ai vu le problème de l'inflation galopante, j'ai fait un travail sur la transmission de l'inflation par le coût de transport maritime. Et j'ai dit, allez, faites très attention. Le coût de transport n'est pas un amortisseur, c'est un accélérateur de l'inflation. Et donc, il faut qu'on fasse très attention, nous, les Méditerranéens, pour réduire le coût de la logistique. Et merci.
Thank you very much, Professor Mustafa. It's been great to listen to you and to learn from you. Just to wrap up this panel, I would like to ask you one last question to all of you. You all mentioned the technology, and in our next panel, we will talk about e-logistics, and we will dig a little bit more into what are the new technologies that are in the sector, treating and leading the sector. But what is, in your opinion, what is the role of technology? What are the key technologies that we should implement in the next 2 to 5 years, or let's say 3 years from now on? What is the role of technology for you? I will start with you, Professor Mustafa. What do you think?
Euh,
Yeah.
à mon avis, les technologies les plus importantes pour nous permettre de maîtriser la chaîne logistique et de réduire son coût, c'est la digitalisation et l'intelligence artificielle. Parce que ça permet de réduire les coûts et d'avoir une certaine transparence dans les relations. Tout à l'heure, un des intervenants, il a parlé de ce qu'on appelle la bureaucratie dans les ports marocains. Je vous donne un exemple. Le port de Tanger-Med, il est classé maintenant 6e. Le port de Casablanca vit des situations délicates. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il y a un problème humain. Et donc, si on arrive avec l'intelligence artificielle, la digitalisation, on va réduire ces relations de parties prenantes à conflit ou à des intérêts pour réduire le coût de passage portuaire. Et ça, c'est là où l'Europe doit intervenir pour aider l'Afrique, ce qu'on appelle la Méditerranée Sud et l'Afrique aussi, parce que je suis vice-président de la Fédération des associations de la logistique en Afrique. Le 9 de ce mois, on va faire un webinaire sur le problème de transport logistique en Afrique. Je vais vous envoyer, si vous voulez assister à ça, c'est pour vous montrer la stratégie et les enjeux que vive l'Afrique subsaharienne dans ce domaine. Et c'est pour ça que l'Europe, j'ai dit, elle a un savoir-faire et un domaine très poussé, que ce soit nos amis espagnols, en français et autres, c'est pour aider dans le cadre des institutions qui existent, que ce soit CETMO ou la Commission européenne ou d'autres, pour venir à pousser à réduire ce qu'on appelle les relations, je peux dire, humaines, qui sont très difficiles par ces nouvelles technologies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I will pass the mic to Emmanuel, just to conclude.
Yes. Well, different aspects. I would say, if we look at the industry, definitely the Mediterranean, the South Mediterranean should continue to increase the quality, the technology in the industry. So this goes with robotization, digitalization, artificial intelligence, as it was said. I would like to emphasize on also there should be a Mediterranean, particularly an African Mediterranean innovation. Today, the context, the capital context makes and the technology context make that we cannot innovate in the south like we do in the north. And anyway, with the future change on the planet, the north will have to change also the way they innovate. And I think the African continent has a lot to teach to the rest of the world in the way they are going to answer to the challenges of food, to the challenges of waste, to the challenges of water. They will have to invent African solutions to these challenges with their way of doing it, which means with less money and less technology. And so we should really, Africans should really look about solution on their own with their innovators, their researchers, and this could inspire the rest of the world really. So it's technology for good, made in Africa is something we should be expecting we should be looking closely for the future.
Thank you, Manuel. Really well said. And just to finish, how about you, Antoine? What your opinion?
Well, access to data is information, and information is power. You can reduce cost, you can reduce bottlenecks, and You can track products. You can, but I would just mention what I've been said before is that it's very important to collaborate, to coordinate, and to learn from each other. And I will mention the initiatives of the Medport Association, which is an association of Mediterranean ports, and they are creating a working group which is called Smart Ports. So they are changing about this issue, how to deal with digitization, disruptive technologies, artificial intelligence, blockchain. And I think it's very interesting that ports from different sides of the Mediterranean can learn from each other. And I think it should be encouraged because ports, there are labs for the digitization and disruptive technologies. And I think that all the ports should be on the same page, because if you are lagging behind, you may not be so well inserted in global value chains. So this is the risk. So I think this is my take.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've been actually mentioning, kind of underlying, no, the collaboration between countries, between continents, and the role of technology and how we should link e-logistics with e-commerce, and how important is the role of technology. In our next panel, we will start like in 10 minutes or so. If you're interested in this topic, I will invite you to stay, because we will talk following with what we discussed today, collaboration schemes for logistics sector and ports. For now, I will finish this first panel of the Meda Logistics 2022. Thank you very much, Antoine, Mustafa, Emmanuel, for being with us here today. I hope next year we will have you, all of you, here in person in Barcelona. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Hello. Good morning. Welcome back again. It's a pleasure to just initiate this second forum, which is logistics in the sharing economy, because e-commerce needs e-logistics. We saw in our last panel that all the different speakers mentioned the importance of technology, digitalization, and so on, to really make it possible and make this regionalization possible in the Mediterranean region. So in this panel, we are gonna dig a little bit more into what are the trends, how to connect the e-logistics with the sector, and how to really accelerate this change. So it's a pleasure for me to present you the speakers with us today. We have well, here in present, Josep Maria Balcells, Faris Alami, and Lamia Hardouche, which Faris and Lamia will be online. Here they are. Hello, welcome. So our first speaker will be Faris Alami. He is the founder and the CEO of the International Strategic Management, and he has worked as an advisor for the World Bank, Goldman Sachs, and as well as other prominent institutions. He is passionate about building ecosystems for startups and well-established business in the international scenario. And I will just wanted to welcome you to this panel at the SIL. Faris, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Lemma, I thought you were going to go first, but no problem. I'm happy to jump in. So I'll go briefly and say this is exciting times. And first of all, congratulations, such another yet great event. And this whole hybrid new world that we live in seems to be a great topic for logistics, because I could only imagine how logistically this could be challenging to coordinate between people all over the place, and yet physical, yet virtual, and making sure that it's all streamed properly. The region, from my perspective, as we know, the theme of today is from global to regional. And the global perspective on the specific region is huge, because when you look at transport, you got lots of ports that are really in the area that are feel like it's an opportunity to be leveraged to grow to much bigger than what it is today. So the opportunities is to really, if we think of us as one country or as a one place, that could potentially be a huge opportunity for collaboration. Now, of course, we know that with collaboration comes challenges, but the collaboration effort is much bigger than any challenges that we may face as a region. Through the Mediterranean Sea, we know how, that that's one of the busiest spot for ships going from Europe to North America to Asia and everything else into Africa, of course, and everything else in between. And I feel like this is really a huge opportunity for us to find ways to collaborate with the logistics. And we know that with software today, we could really do all kinds of things that we could not have done before. So we could make some of the ideas automated. We could even know exactly where things are happening. So we could improve proficiency. We could also deploy, AI to give us better understanding of the best way to logistically move, products and services. And this could be really an opportunity for the region to collaborate on this effort. Another point I'd like to just shed a light on here is some of the solutions could be an opportunity for us also to invent some of the solutions that are there. Because of the number of logistical activities that is happening in the region, I really feel that could be an opportunity to create competitions, hackathons, to aspire individuals and entrepreneurs to come up with better solutions to engage the logistical community in the region. I could I could keep going, but I would like to make sure that we have enough time for other panels to cover some of the ideas and some of the points with us here today, and then maybe leave some time for questions and answers. Um, One of the things I will just close with this, my remarks here, is logistics is key, as we all know, and it's going to become even a bigger key as we continue to emerge from the pandemic. And it's clear that we are now entering a new era of things going to be, as we all noticed that the last 2 years, the logistical challenges were much bigger. Supply chain was hit hard. And I feel like there are opportunities right now to innovate, to collaborate, and to create new ways of doing things. And maybe igniting some of the old ways, but also aspiring new ways to do business logistically. Thank
Faris.
you.
Thank you very much, Faris. Always inspiring us with your words. Also, you are based in the United States, so for this collaboration and collaborative ecosystem, we can take some inspiration from the US, as they are one of the most advanced in this kind of making business. I
Yeah, I
will.
mean, as you know, Detroit, I'm based in Detroit, but today I'm actually in Portugal. I'm
I
looking
know.
outside the window from Portugal.
I know.
I could have easily come to Barcelona, I guess, but I have another speaking event today here. But
Yes.
and there was an opportunity to do it virtually with you.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to say, I'm based in Detroit, and as you know, Detroit, because of the automotive, logistics is really key because now you have to get all these cars, and we all know that cars are not made in one place. You could imagine that parts are made from all over the place and they have to be assembled in Detroit. So there are lots of opportunities to learn from the logistics that we have done in Detroit for sure, but also of what's happening in the global market today. There's definitely a shift in how people are doing business, looking for local resources, looking for regional resources, and this is why I feel there's an opportunity here to do something much bigger than what we may have done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Faris.
Thank you.
So I will stay with us. I will have a question for all of you at the very end. But now it's my pleasure to give the floor to our speaker here in person today, Josep Maria Valls, Balcells. Josep is a board experience at advising Spanish and foreign logistic companies. in merge and acquisitions. He is also a professor for master studies at the SADE, Master of Laws, and he has specialized in commercial distributions. He's advising different wholesalers and retailers here in Barcelona, but also national and international level. He will be digging a little bit more into the legal perspective of e-logistics, as he's an expert on this field. So looking forward to hear your intervention. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Diana, and thank you to all the attendants and the audience that are following us online. And thank you also for organizing this event. Thank you to SIL and the other organizations. I will focus on the legal aspects of e-logistics in connection with e-commerce. Maybe first thing to do is to define e-logistics, because sometimes it's assumed that we understand what's the meaning of that word, but in reality it's not that obvious that everybody understands the same thing. So from my perspective, from a legal perspective, I understand e-logistics or logistics connected with the e-commerce includes all the management and processes that are necessary to deliver goods that have been sold in a platform, in an online platform, okay? And so that implies a completely different approach to ordering, to delivering, to returning products, to the post or after sales policy of the company. Because we have a different way to organize logistics if we are selling our products online. This is not completely different to selling on a retail shop or retail place, but it's complementary. And I will maybe develop these ideas later on. So e-logistics is closely connected to e-commerce. We have, in the last 10 years, completely changed the world in terms of new platforms, portals, webs that are the marketplaces to sell goods, physical goods or intangible goods. But we have not completely changed, or we are in the process of completely changing the logistics connected to the e-commerce sales. Because, and these are the key issues that I think we should consider, is that first, e-commerce is a boom in the last, maybe before the pandemics, but especially during the pandemic. Online sales have boomed and have risen to 30% or more of the international trade. First thing. Second thing, consumers are much more demanding than were before, especially in the European Union, because European legislation have been protecting especially consumers, and consumers know their rights more and more, and consumers are more demanding in terms of quality, in terms of service, in terms of delivery, in terms of other rights that they have as consumers, because European legislation is protecting them. Third issue that I think we should consider is some specific rights that have changed the e-logistics and the e-commerce in general, is that the withdrawal right. As you know, consumers have the right to withdraw from the contract, from the acquisition that they made online, and return the product without any special cost. It's not necessary that the product is defective or in bad conditions, but you can simply return the product within a period of 14 days. So that implies necessarily to change the logistics of the company, that has to be able to recover the product and return the product back to the store and sell again the product. So that completely changed the logistics. And this is an important change in the policy on the logistics management policy of the companies. From a legal perspective, I would say that we have to distinguish two situations that are important. First, the relations between the company, contractual relations between the company and their customers, the end users, the consumers, because they have a special protection, they have a special regime, especially in the European Union, that protect consumers and grant them special rights that could be enforced against the company or the e-merchant. So always necessary to distinguish the company relationship with final customers, with consumers. First thing, this is the B2C regime, which is, as I said, specially protected. And the other kind of relations is the B2B relations with our suppliers, with our distributors, with our outsourcers, etc. All the other kind of relations that the e-merchant or a company selling online can have with third parties. The second trend or the second issue we have to consider is whether our company is selling internationally or nationally, because this also changes considerably the risks, the applicable law to these transactions. So we have to be careful who is our counterpart in those particular relations. Is it a national company or is it an international company? Why that? And I'm going to the point, because I think it's an important issue for the companies to know. We have to establish our legal framework, our contractual framework with our consumers, with our clients or our providers or suppliers. And relations are completely different. If you enter or if you access an online platform, you will discover a legal notice or terms and conditions of sale. If you visit or you sell in Amazon, you obviously will find a nice piece of law that nobody reads, but which is very important to govern the relationship between users and the company. And this would imply many important issues. To mention some: data protection, personal data protection of the consumer, withdrawal rights, when the consumer may return the product, under which circumstances, delivery terms, payment terms, warranty periods. From last January, the guarantee periods for consumer products in the European Union has been extended to 3 years. In the past were 2 years of guarantee. Now we have 3 years for consumer products. So all these kind of matters are very relevant at the end to produce satisfaction to the client. At the end, we need a shopping experience that is positive so that the client will return and buy again. I think even if it's a legal issue, the platform should be oriented to produce the excellence or the quality service for the client. At the end, this is what the client is looking for. Delivery terms that could be honored. The products are well packaged, arrive on time, etc., etc. This is, at the end, the e-logistics behind the e-commerce. The other relations concern with suppliers, distributors, etc. In that area, what I would suggest is that try to draft appropriate contracts with your suppliers or distributors or at least get your terms of and conditions of sale, so that these rules apply in your relations with your partners or with your suppliers or distributors. If you can draft a specific contract, much better. If not, your terms and conditions of sale are crucial to protect your business against potential claims from third parties. Why that? And I'm finishing. Why that? Because some issues like, which is the applicable law with my supplier, who is a German company, or who is a Moroccan company, or a US company. If I'm not stating in my contract that the law that is governing our relationship is Spanish or American or whatever, there are some uncertainties about how we have to govern our relationship. Law is crucial, jurisdiction is crucial. If there is a conflict between us, where will be the company able to file a suit or a crucial court claim? Will be the Spanish courts competent, or do we have to go to another country? So these are the, crucial issues to protect the company against potential claims. I said jurisdiction, law, other issues, retention of title. What is retention of title? Retention of title is who is the owner of the product when the product is traveling. The product is shipped, but in the meantime, may change the property over that product. So we have to define who is the owner in which moment, because if the product is lost or the product is damaged, who will carry or bear the costs associated with that defect or damage? So there are different issues that are necessary to rule under the terms and conditions or under the contract that link our relationship with third parties. And I don't want to extend more, but if there are any questions later on, I will be pleased to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Actually, if anyone from here with us today in the public wants to make any question at the very end, I'll be happy to pass it to the speakers. Is this, Josep Maria, because in the European Union, these laws and these regulations are really well established? We have a legal frame, no? But it's maybe not the case for other regions or for other countries. So in this case, that's what you are advising our colleagues, no, in other countries to really think about and write consciously their terms and conditions of sale. Mm-hmm. This is why you're making this reflection, no?
Yeah, exactly.
And then in relation to that, what do you think are the challenges for e-logistics, for e-commerce platforms? As we are seeing a bloom in e-commerce platforms, what are, the main challenges or the main things that we should all take a look at, like if we own an e-commerce or logistic platform, what we should take into consideration?
It's a very good question. More or less, most of the companies that are operating online have their terms and conditions, but not all of them are implementing rules to govern their relationships with third parties in the logistic area.
Okay. So
that, in my opinion, the e-commerce in general is more or less well regulated. I think the European Union is behind other countries or other regions in the world, in the sense that they are regulating a lot. I don't know if too much, but there are lots of rules in several areas. And in some way it's good, because they are, controlling the excess. They are trying to protect consumers. They are, establishing some framework. So I think that whereas in the e-commerce area, things are moving because they are all the time changing. Quite recently, a new directives changed or implemented new rights for the consumers. Now we have a new directive proposal that will rule the supply chain requisites, will implement some measures to guarantee sustainability of the process and protection of human rights and protection of environmental issues, so that all big companies comply with those rules to protect human rights, to protect environment. So every day there are new regulations, and I think that the focus is now in the logistic area, because the logistic is still not very well contractually defended for operators.
So that will be the main challenge, like
I think exactly.
how to coordinate.
Correct.
No?
It's the second.
Everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Because the logistics should follow the e-commerce, and the e-commerce should follow the logistics. So that coordination is necessary. If not, you are in. You have protection in your website, but you don't have protection in your
logistics.
relationship with third parties. No. So this is maybe the challenge for the future.
Of course. Thank you very much, Josep
You're
Maria.
welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
At the end, as I mentioned, if anyone has any question, and I would like to give the floor to our last speaker. Oh, yes, Stefano, we will leave the questions to the very end. Thank you, if we have time. So I will give the floor to Lamia Hardouche. She is the Secretary General of Fairports. She is managing relationships with many different stakeholders in European ports across the region, and also representing the interest of companies that are operating in the sector. It's a pleasure to have you here with us today, Lamia. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana, and good afternoon, Barcelona. I would have loved to be there. Thank you to all the organizers for inviting Freeport. I have a presentation, but I'm going also to react to what I heard, because it was very interesting to what Josep both and Faris said already. They are both experts on logistics, so I'm not going on e-commerce. I'm not going to comment on that part, but maybe not focus on the B2C, but rather on the B2B, where we need to move faster. And therefore, I'm going to speak about my industry. So maybe a few things about Freeport. Freeport is representing the private port companies and terminals in seaports. It's approximately 1,225 private port companies investing a lot. So it's more or less 56 billion euros in the last 10 years. Part of this investment goes to actually innovation and digitalization, and also automation, but also in labor and in training and in a lot of equipment in ports. My members also employ the majority of port workers, and this represents 390,000 port workers all over the European ports. So my members are of two nature. I would say they are either companies, global ones, many of them, and this is quite helpful also for Freeport to know a bit more about what are the strategies at global level and how logistics is becoming a big component of also the private port companies and terminals. And we do have also the national associations representing the different companies and SMEs in different European countries. This is how we actually explain who are my members. Historically, they were mainly focusing on the relationship or the interface between the seaside and the land side, essentially dock work and a bit of yard management. But now we are expanding into what we call landside operations, and hence this where comes logistics and the need to have, I would say, a more professional and more sustainable management of logistics into the hinterland. But if you allow me, I would like just to react to what I heard earlier and take you a bit for a helicopter view, I would say, on the what is going on for all of us collectively, whatever is the industry. I think we are in the fourth industrial revolution now, and this means that we have to actually deal with a lot of things at the same time. So indeed, we do have to train people, upskill them to deal with new jobs, and because we see the emergence of many new jobs that did not exist 10 years ago. Of course, there is this connectivity and customers experience that Josep was mentioning earlier, and Faris too. We see the emergence of new business models too. But also we do have a moving regulatory framework everywhere. For instance, in the EU, we see that at this moment, environment is on very top on the at the very top on the agenda of policymakers. So sustainability is an important dimension, and logistics also plays a role in terms of sustainability. So, and I will explain it a bit later. So we have big challenges, but these challenges are 360 challenges. So it's not only one direction. We have to deal with all kinds of challenges. And I would like also to make maybe two comments of a more political nature. We have gone through COVID-19, and I have been participating to a lot of events where everybody was talking about the going back to normal, the new normal, not yet normal. I think that we will never go back to normal. And this is the way we see it from our industry, because I think that disruption will be part of the new models. And this is where we need also to think in a different way, actually, when we provide services, and also when we think about the consumer behavior. It used to be with trends. I think today you have a consumer behavior which is changing all the time, and with a lot of expectations. And Josep was mentioning about the fact that indeed this withdrawal ability that the consumer does have, we see it coming also in the B2B little by little, in the sense that there are a lot of expectations also in the B2B context, whereby the customers want also to track their shipments, and their shipments are containers, it's not just one order. So it means that we are also getting this traceability, this transparency discussion that we already have in e-commerce, coming into the B2B in industries which are rather old-fashioned compared to, for instance, the e-commerce. So I think that the COVID, we should take it as something which is a quite significant event, in the sense that we will not go back to what happened in the past, and we need to develop a rather disruptive thinking when it comes to how we are going to manage the next steps. The second comment I would like to make is happening now, and it's connected to the topic of this session, which is about the reassuring. Should we modify the flows? Should we go for more regional versus two global flows, etc.? I think the same thing, COVID has taught us, especially in the EU, how dependent we are on some areas and some regions. And sometimes my feeling is that we didn't really think about it. We are still on the same model. And what is happening in Shanghai, and this will be my last political comment, at this moment with 100 ships stuck there because of the lockdown, I think it's opening up. The latest announcement we heard is that now apparently operations are resuming, and it should be better. But for us at EU level, especially for my members in European ports, we expect to have some congestion coming, because when these ships are going to head for European ports, we have to deal with yards which are already stuck with a lot of exports, which have not left because the ships were in Shanghai, and because also we are relying on one region to actually determine somehow the flows, and the incoming and outgoing flows. So I think that we need to learn some lessons. If we do not learn some lessons from what is going on, we are going to repeat exactly the same type of mistakes too, and this will not help. So for me, I think it's very important that we take the lessons to shape up the pace of innovation and technological, I would say, evolutions that are needed in the industry. I will close the brackets there. So indeed, we have digital forces transforming the port and shipping industry, e-commerce platforms for sure. We have also automation, which is coming, although in the port industry, it's still very limited. When we talk about fully automated terminals, it's really 4% all over the world. But of course, we do have semi-automated, partially automated terminals that are also implemented when it makes sense. Artificial intelligence is also coming, and this is going to be something that will speed up the decision-making processes. And it will also certainly help in professionalizing the way we work in the industry. What is at the core for my industry, and I think this is the big steps we are moving is data. Data is absolutely crucial. There is resistance still between some actors to share data because, of course, data is sometimes sensitive, not always, but it is sometimes sensitive. And of course, there are also some strategies from some actors to actually integrate vertically. And of course, data is certainly an enabler of such an integration. So there are also some movements in the industry. We see it through the platforms, and we see it through big players like Amazon and some others who are even thinking about investing in heavy assets. So you see that there is a trend also taking place. So it means that we will need also to have, if we want to speed up, we will need to have a discussion around the governance, data governance, because you cannot just consider that it will be data should be concentrated in the hands of few actors only. We will need to discuss how this data is used and by whom and how, etc. So it has also some legal implications. The European Commission has already worked on it with the Digital Service Act, but we need to do more on some, I would say, specific B2B industries. Now, when it comes to cooperation and how digitalization and how the exchange of data electronically is helping concretely in my industry, things to improve. We see it through a number of exchanges that take place between different, for instance, technological services at the port level and the different customers of the port. Whenever there is an exchange of information that takes place in an optimal way, for instance, when a ship before arrival announces its actual estimated time of arrival, but the real one, not the one which is a theoretical one and sent some days before. I think that this allows the terminal to be ready, to have the proper equipment and the proper labor force, and it enables also the terminal to already appoint, provide a number of gate appointment slots for the trucks to come and collect data, the cargo. So it means that when it works well, the exchange of information, the digital exchange of information is something that is absolutely wonderful in terms of impact and efficiency. So this is ongoing. So I'm just saying that it's gaining and it's improving. And some ports, I know that in Barcelona, for instance, it's going rather fast, but in other ports too, there is cooperation. And today, I tend to say that what is interesting is whenever there is no cooperation or no digital exchange of information, we see it very quickly that it has an impact on the productivity and the efficiency of the port-ship interface, for instance, relationship, and also with the internet, with the rest of the internet. This is just to give you an example on how today we do have what we call the port coordination centers, where you have all flows of information coming from different parties. So the ship, of course, the different port services that are actually all sending information through an interface whereby they can connect and they can send the information so that the cargo, because this is our obsession for the terminal industry, the cargo should leave as soon as possible. We don't like cargo staying too long on the yard because this is a parking area otherwise, and we don't like it. So for people who think that we like congestion, I can tell you, I swear, my members, they hate congestion. And for them, if they can get rid, of the cargo as soon as possible, they are very happy. One last example on the digital solutions that have been implemented. It's Xvela, which actually involved a number of shipping lines and also terminals. And it actually produced some concrete effects, not only in terms of efficiency, but also in terms of sustainability. Don't forget that if a truck comes too early in the vicinity of ports, this is bad for environment, because it means that we will have emissions that we can afford to, or we cannot afford to have, or we would like to prevent. So actually, it's very important that we have on time arrival on the seaside and on the interland side, be it for all mode of transport. This is also valid for barges. So I think that the better we can actually connect and exchange information, the better it is. And this is, of course, just the image of what is today, from our perception, the role of the terminal. It's, of course, connected both upstream and downstream. It's not only physical infrastructure, it's a digital connection and connectivity that is actually important. And of course, this allows the terminal, I would say, the ambition is of course, thanks to digital platforms, we do have, of course, the possibility to have a holistic and intelligent approach, a synchro model, I would say, management of the flows, which means that we do have, of course, a real-time visibility over what is going to happen on the seaside. Then we have predictability on what type of equipment, resources that we need at the level of the terminal. And of course, we can better prescribe what are the needs to get rid, as I said, of the cargo and make it leave the port. Maybe this is the last slide. I would like just to refer to a very important organization that has been created in three years ago now. It's the Terminal Industry Committee 4.0. It is working on standards and the exchange of information in a standardized way at the level of the terminals. So it's about harmonization, standardization, and they are going quite fast. They have already produced 3 white papers with the terminology, the technical terminology that is used in the different terminals. So it's about a corpus of definitions. This might look very technical, but actually it has taken some time for them. They did it now to define just what is a move, so that all ports refer to the same things when they talk about a move in a terminal. So this is part also of the innovation, and this goes also in the direction of more connectivity, more human to machine, I would say, communication and enhanced relationship between the different stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lamia, for the presentation. So I think that we've been talking a little bit about how technology is really necessary, how Internet of Things, robotics, artificial intelligence, but how data, no? Like how our ports should be driven by data, but also what are the legal frames and that will kind of allow us to share this data among us that will help us to coordinate us better, and how important it is to have these legal frameworks and how to not have like too much of a legal framework that kind of paralyze everything, but not too little that kind of it's an obstacle for us to make businesses and to make an exchange of goods between each other. So I will just ask you, all of you, really quick questions. I'm really passionate about futuristics and how we see the world in the next years. So I will just ask you, how do you see e-logistics in the next 5 years? Just with a sentence of 2. I will start with you, Faris. I see your face. I don't know if any one of you have it like really clear, can just jump in. But if not, Faris, the floor is yours.
Sure. It's a loaded question. I think there are so many great points that were brought up by my colleagues here and you. And I would like to just say, I think logistics has a huge opportunity, huge potential for not only logistical in physics and moving things, but also in the e-commerce. Even the numbers that we heard today, that 20 or 30%, and there's so many reports all over the place. Even if it was all the way to 70% of sales, we're still not talking about business to business. We're still talking only about business to consumer. The huge opportunity for government to do more legit, e-commerce. There are huge opportunities for business to do, e-commerce. The e-commerce world and logistics, once they get merged, and I love what Lama said about Industry 4.0. I feel we've been talking about that now for a decade, about Industry 4.0, and it'll be nice to see what will emerge from it into specifically the e-commerce and logistical merger or interaction. I'll stop because I know we're short on time.
Thank you, Faris. Lamia, since you are online, how do you see the future of e-logistics? What is your opinion?
I think that it's what is going on in e-commerce is a fantastic stimulus in the sense that you cannot ignore. Nobody in my industry, in the maritime industry, which is rather heavy asset driven and also a bit slow in implementing change because indeed of the level of investment that is also required. I think that the e-commerce is pushing the walls, and we see that the platforms, for instance, are also, even when they are not happy about the fact that the freight rates are too high, or for instance that there is congestion somewhere, they are even now threatening to buy their own ships, and so there is a commoditization trend that is there. Huh? So it's either I used to say when I was teaching, always I liked that in universities we always say you publish or perish. In our industry, I think that is either we innovate or we will decline. It's a bit we are condemned to do that. Huh? I think that it's very important that we take the best practices in e-commerce. Not everything is, you cannot transpose everything, but at least in terms of transparency, in terms of accountability whenever something goes wrong, in terms of being able to track indeed, and in using some chips, some all these the tools that are used to track the cargo can be easily implemented, and they are, because we use RFID, for instance, now for containers. We do have a lot of things, but I'm not very anxious for my industry. It will not go very fast, but it will go. I'm a bit more concerned about what Faris was mentioning about the B2G or B2A. Because sometimes the reasons why cargo is going slow, it's because it has to go through administrative procedures and through some checks that are actually depending on governments and member states. So for us, the big wish, I'm not answering totally your question, but actually saying something that if we want to go even faster within the 5 coming years, I think that we need also to enroll the member states and the governments in also establishing the good interoperability between business and administrations and governments. And I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Lamia. So I think we all see smart ports coming up in the next 5 years all across the Mediterranean, hopefully. And just to close this panel, I would like to give the floor to Josep Maria. How do you see e-logistics in the next 5 years?
I think my colleagues summarized very well also my position. I think efficiency will be one of the key issues, but also, and specifically what Lamia mentioned at the end of her presentation is about collaboration between governments and companies to create a worldwide framework which doesn't exist at the moment. So every region is working on their own, and the world is global, and the transactions are global. So I think that maybe because of technology is equalizing the whole planet,
Yes.
we will probably produce or need harmonization in terms of legal rules and rights across the world.
Pues let's hope for that more private-public partnerships.
Exactly.
And to have a kind of a global governance for all our logistics. That's what I hope for. Thank you very much for everyone joining us here today. And now I will just close this meeting. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.
Thank you so much. Great job.